to back with another episode of our podcast. Just me and you again this week in person in the same room. I do prefer these sessions very often, I have to say, because they feel more personal. Exactly, it feels much more interactive in some way, and you don't have to talk to a screen. I don't know how you feel. I sometimes feel talking to the camera doesn't exactly feel. You don't get that instant feedback that you get when someone is there and you can kind of judge their expression.
I said last week it's like rather than 3D, it's 4D when you're in person. There's just some extra dimension which is hard to put your finger on, which I don't know, like if you're a bit spiritual about it, you might say it's just like an energy about it, but I don't know. Like at least I feel like emotions and whatever are a little bit contagious, at least to some degree, and I think that's been shown. So I think there's just something about being in person which is cool.
I do like that as well. And for me, I feel sometimes I lack the ability to kind of read the social cues, and even more so when someone is through a screen rather than in person. I even struggle in person to read social cues from people. That's what I'm trying to say. And sometimes on a screen, it's even worse. You don't know if what you said sounded all right, or if it was misinterpreted, or if it was misunderstood, or if it sounds wrong, if that makes sense.
We say body language is a big part of communication, like on all these trainings that you get for work or whatever. It's body language and facial expressions is a big part. And I wonder if, because we're often cut off at this point, whether we don't see so much of the hand gestures when we're on Zoom. So that's one thing, but
that's true, actually. I do a lot of hand gestures myself. Sometimes you can see my hands, I think, in the videos. And sometimes I kind of try to not use my hands because I sometimes knock on my microphone as well. And I kind of...
So it does restrict your natural movement. Because it does come very natural.
It does. I flail all the time when I'm trying to kind of get into the description of my argument or something like that. So I don't know. I've been told that I do a lot of hand gestures in the past. Which sometimes actually you've been told. I've had presentation training before where they tell you that you shouldn't do a lot of hand gestures because it actually detracts from your presentation. If you're trying to do a professional kind of job presentation, they tell you should kind of, Tim Cook doesn't flail a lot when he does his Apple presentations. He does this kind of whole kind of steady hands moving there, but he doesn't flail about. So they tell you just to be kind of conservative with your movements because it makes people focus on your hands instead of what you're saying and what you're trying to convey.
Interesting, because you think actually the opposite might be true, is that your hands convey a story, and even maybe people don't think they're taking much in from your hands, but they perhaps are.
Maybe. I personally think if you're using your hands, it means you're more not engaged necessarily, but more attached to what you want to say.
You got more passion.
More passionate, that's what I was going to say,
Maybe you could go too far overboard, but I think as long as you're relatively professional, it's good to have a passion.
Yeah, I agree. Well, in any case, we're back now, and I want to bring to you a topic to discuss today, because I was watching a few videos recently on my feed, and I have friends as well that have been watching a variety of videos on social media and stuff, and I keep seeing on my feed and on my friends' feeds that there's a lot of AI-generated content that seems to be coming more and more these days with every topic and any kind of video that you can see. So I had friends telling me that a lot of products now are advertised through videos that are half the times AI generated, or even movie trailers that are AI generated, or any kind of video you can imagine is AI generated. So a lot of people these days believe that we might be going towards the dead internet theory, which apparently originated back around 2019 in online conspiracy circles, where people were talking about this as a theory that suggests that much of the internet is automated and AI generated content that just facilitates bot interactions and is mainly controlled by corporate controlled algorithms that effectively is drowning real human interaction. What do you think about that?
Well, it seems like to some extent that's obviously true. It's just how far it is true, and how much worse it could get. Because it could be, it could be like worst case scenario that so like 99% of the content on Google and on social media is bot content, like, or at least created by AI, and that might actually be because the content is on the whole better than human content, because they can create 24/7, whereas a human creator takes more time to create.
Yeah, I definitely think that. I think in a lot of cases, what you say, for example, AI content being better, I don't think we're there yet. I think very often you can tell that it's AI generated content. I think you can not easily. I think I've actually managed to be fooled myself these days. There's been a couple of instances when I watched the video and I did not realize on the first watch that it was AI generated.
It's definitely getting closer to being perfect.
It's actually very scary.
And then sometimes you don't mind that it's AI generated.
No, exactly.
Because it's just a good idea. It's just a good viral idea, which would cost loads of money to film it and bring in actors or whatever. But you can just generate it via AI, and it's done pretty quickly.
My issue is that I always have reservations, though. Whenever I see something that is AI generated, I have to be certain about the truth around the topic. If it's something that isn't necessarily a matter of importance, if it's just something about entertainment, then I don't really matter if it doesn't really matter to me if it's true or not. It can be what it is. It can be just a fun video. But if it's something that is more important, or something that is a topic of discussion, for example, whether, let's say, it's some kind of political issue, I would want to know if it's AI generated or not, because then I don't know if it's trying to present something that isn't real as true, and vice versa.
Yeah, I guess it's a problem that will, if it is got potential to be a problem, it will get so bad that people will just have to all adopt that attitude, because it will just be, you just literally can't trust. So even if you want to trust that this politician has said this thing, and then you will eventually find out later that this one scenario that you believed it and that you were completely wrong. And if that happens enough times, then people would just not be able to trust, and therefore they will hopefully just only taking content from profiles which have been like verified as a real person, and you will have these trusted sources. So each person might have a few people they trust, which they know for sure that that's true, rather than just consuming content from random accounts.
I think to a degree that is true, but I think a lot of people browse the feed not necessarily looking at where the information has come from, and the first piece of information they watch on a topic, that will automatically become their opinion of the topic. So in this case, people might end up watching something that is AI generated, making up their minds on that topic with false information that isn't even true.
It's been happening for years to some extent, because there's good arguments for nearly every. You can make a good sounding argument for pretty much both sides of every debate, and therefore people have just cherry picked their own facts and presented one argument. And so if you find that this is the first time you've been aware of this debate, then you come across one side of the argument on social media or wherever, then you're going to probably believe that. It's an interesting phenomenon, which I guess AI has the potential to exacerbate.
Do you think that there has been any shift in online engagement? Do you feel like that real discussions are being maybe replaced by interactions between bots, for example, in feeds? I actually watched the video myself not long ago from a creator on TikTok. They made a video about them posting something on Twitter, and then they got a nice comment underneath it, and they thought, oh, that's a nice comment. What do you think about this and this and that? They replied to that person's comment on their original post, and thinking that it was a comment in good faith, and they kind of started discussing with that person, only to realize that this was actually a bot account. That account was not There was not a real person behind that specific account. And they were just interacting with a bot in this case. And they were shocked. And that creator was actually shocked, and they were telling that story on that video. I don't remember who it was. I was trying to find that video the other day before our podcast to kind of talk about it. But that's what I remember. And I don't know if that's a good thing, because do you really want to, post our video and then you get comments underneath the video saying, oh, how nice your podcast was, and then you're saying, oh, thank you very much, and then you see that it's not a real person that has even watched the podcast. It's just a bot. So doesn't that undermine a little bit any interaction you have? If you know that it's becoming more and more likely that in the future all the interactions you might have on the internet might not be with real people, doesn't that undermine a little bit all of our social media spaces?
Yeah, it obviously does, but I guess in a way that might push us towards something more positive. Well, I don't know what it would be, but it would. If our inclinations change about a social media or product, any product, then the company that owns it has to change how things are done, or they will be outcompeted by a company which provides a better alternative. So that's a good thing about innovation and capitalism. For all its flaws, at least the natural evolution of things should respond to the user's demands, unless humans just generally become second-rate citizens and AI just runs everything.
You can argue that this is what big corporations such as Google and Meta are doing effectively by giving us more and more AI-generated content in our feeds. They're just responding to the demand. You could argue people are watching it, therefore it's coming more and more into our feeds. But is that necessarily good for us? Because is that just serving these big corporations' bottom line to get more money out of just giving us more AI-generated content in our algorithms, or is that actually good for us? That's kind of...
Well, I don't think big companies are ever completely cared about whether something's good for us, mentally or physically. As for the downside of capitalism is that it's all about who can make the most money, and so therefore any flaws of the customer will be exploited, and there will be no stop until that without government. Which is not ideal either. But that's, we can trust companies because they will just try and make as much money as they can within the boundaries of law and in the boundaries of their reputation. So as long as they can justify it and they can say, oh, people just want this content, that's what the algorithm is giving them because they've responded well to this content, so we're just expanding the reach of this AI-generated content.
The problem is, I think, responded well isn't necessarily true, because the algorithm just rewards watch time of content with more of the same content for people. But I would argue in a lot of cases, and I see it from people like older family members and so on, they don't even know that they've watched an AI-generated video. And there isn't even a label very often attached to this AI-generated content videos to tell the user that what you've just watched is AI-generated in this case. So I would argue that, yes, if people are watching, fair enough, they like it. But I would also state that it's just as important to add some kind of label to the content, always as far as it's possible to do so. To add labels to the content to tell people that this is actually AI-generated. Especially, I mean, now you can still tell that, I think for us as younger generation, we can tell when something is AI-generated most of the times. But I'm sure that in a couple of years, we might not be able to tell if something has been AI-generated. When you're watching a video, I still remember the video of Will Smith a few years back. I was telling you the other day, where you see this video of Will Smith eating pasta, and it's a complete chaos of Will Smith throwing hands of pasta in his mouth, and it doesn't look real at all. And I watched the same video or similar AI-generated video the other day of Will Smith eating pasta, and it was so realistic. You could almost not
But the
realized.
appeal of that video is that it's a comparison to the previous video,
Yes.
which makes it feel like, oh, it's a shocking response. Oh, this has got so much better in all those years. So it's not actually the video of Will Smith eating pasta being really realistic. That's not the thing which is getting your attention so much.
No.
And there might be an uncanny valley effect. You know, with Polar Express, they made the animations too realistic. So it might be, it's not always a good thing to go all the way to fully realistic where we can't tell, because people won't be able to trust that so much. So it might be that people, for entertainment at least, people actually want the AI like clues that it's just, we know it's AI.
I know, but it does feel like we're headed towards an episode of Black Mirror in a way with AI-generated content. The one specifically, it was one of the recent seasons where there was a person who her life was becoming a story for the internet, like a story for Netflix.
And she was. Yeah, I think I remember watching it, but I don't remember.
I don't exactly remember the details of it as well, but I remember that they were using her likeness to kind of project the story on the internet, but it wasn't herself. It wasn't her own story in a way. So what if they can just use your face to make you do anything that you haven't even agreed to, for example? Isn't that...
Well, this is all part of the wider worry of the degradation of human rights in terms of, like, Yuval Noah Harari talks of, I think it's his book Homo Deus, he talks of a future. We take human rights for granted. We assume human rights are a thing and they're going to carry on. But they are, in a way, as far as government's concerned, they're just a created privilege. And as far as we have them because they're useful for the functioning of a harmonious society, which makes money and the system works. But as soon as AI takes many jobs, if we are to go down that route, then humans theoretically could, or most humans might be a sponge on the state, so sapping the resources, and therefore humans might actually be seen as just like a leech, which the AI or the people in control want to get rid of, or just at least not grant as many rights as we have now. And
I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of with the increase of AI and the loss of jobs due to AI, for example. People are actually afraid about what's going to happen with the future of a lot of jobs and all of these people who are going to lose their jobs, but there's nothing else to kind of replace these jobs. Because in the past, I think with Industrial Revolution, we were able to reduce a lot of jobs that were dangerous, that were really manual, that were really hazardous to health, for example, with machines in factories. But then there was a lot of other jobs that were created in tech and other industries such as a lot of white-collar jobs that allowed people to work in offices. But now there is not another step after the white-collar jobs. There's nothing else to kind of step up to. If AI takes a white-collar job for these people, are you going to go back to doing manual labor? I don't think so. I think AI will take over these jobs as well much more easily, as we were saying recently.
Yeah, it's like solar panels. It's more of an investment to make a robot to do even a manual job, but over 10 years, you know that investment will pay off because they're able to work more hours and make less mistakes.
Precisely. So I think a lot of people are worried about what is going to be the value of people in this capitalistic society that we live in if people don't have anything to give in terms of production or resource or
Yeah, that's why I think technology which empowers individuals is going to become a really big thing going forwards, or it should become a really big thing.
So, like technologies that allows you to, like for example, in our case, content creation. You mean?
Well, not just things which increase our capacity to do the things we like, but actually to protect us and to enforce our rights and freedoms in terms of, say, financial and political. Having each individual has technology which safeguards their individual power, which can't be commandeered or influenced by outside forces. So rather than one centralized government, which you might still have, which we sacrifice. We have one choice every 5 years, and we sacrifice. We accept that the government are going to do a job. Each individual will have their technology, which gives them sovereignty to some degree, as much as we can have sovereignty with loads of people. Like, obviously, you can't have one person being more important than the others. So if we've got 500 people in a society, obviously you've got more, then everyone will have 1/500th a say in what happens, or at least they won't get, the government won't be able to use the people or take away their rights, because they'll have certain protections. We all have like smartwatches for like our health, and we'll be able to be empowered by that technology if we want it to tell us what's actually making us unhappy, what's making us happy, what's making us healthy, what's making us unhealthy. So it will empower us with data, and therefore you've got a coach where you can choose whether to listen to it or not. But that power doesn't link up to the government or any centralized system. It's all on your watch, and it's all personalized to you as well. And it's not trying to influence you. It's not some company. It could be some company trying to influence you in some way. But the what's going to become really valuable is you buy something and you know it's decentralized. It's something which is just there to help you. It's there to empower you and to help you be the human you want to be, and not have external forces manipulating you so much.
That would be nice, but I don't know if you heard the other day, you talked about decentralization, fair enough, and I would hope that AI allows us to have this kind of decentralized power that you just mentioned. But for example, I don't know if you heard the other day, Apple has capitulated to the UK government in giving the UK government access to the data of all of its users if needed. Users in the UK will not have the advanced data protection that Apple used to offer to everyone globally, and this is the first time this has ever happened. So data that is encrypted in the iCloud will now be available to the UK government if the UK government has a justification to look into this data of yours.
Yeah, I guess it makes a lot of sense that the UK government could, if they had a suspected terrorist, be able to look into that. The problem is with a slippery slope theory. If you don't draw the line at a clear-cut thing, then future governments, one government might make the law that if you've got a justifiable reason, you got this terrorist, and everyone agrees it will be a justifiable reason to look at whatever they've been doing. But in future governments, then they can take that same law and push the boundaries.
Precisely.
And they might be authoritarian, so they might be able to push the boundaries very quickly, or it might be just a very subtle pushing the boundaries, and people just get used to the boundaries being pushed, and it doesn't feel like they're actually being pushed. But if you study it over the years, then you see actually this rule has been taken more and more advantage of, and we haven't noticed.
I completely agree. I think it's a very concerning development, especially for the UK, that the government can now access encrypted data of its users. I don't think it's certainly any kind of good precedent set here.
Yeah.
But talking about, as you were saying, more power to individuals and so on with the use of AI and technology, I think that we are going to see more of a return to smaller communities that are more centered around real creators. I was seeing someone the other day on TikTok having a short video to explain a recent topic, and then they said, you can go and watch my detailed review about this topic in my Substack. And I never heard of Substack as much as I'm hearing it now in recent times, which I don't know if you know it. It refers to this app where it's an online platform launched in 2017 that enables writers, journalists, and content creators to publish a subscription-based newsletter directly to their audience. And it provides tools for publishing, payment processing, analytics, and design, allowing creators to monetize their work without relying on traditional media outlets. So you don't need any advertisements, you don't need any kind of external kind of platform support to kind of make a living through it, and you can build up your base, and you can be
this is
directly connected to your viewers and your followers.
This is a really good thing, but it's also a dangerous thing, because theoretically you can have, like, for instance, say like Rumble, like very free speech oriented, pretty much, however controversial you are, you can have a show on there, and you just got the people that are watching you, and no necessarily opposite side of the debate.
It's a bubble then,
and so you're in more of a bubble, and that's not to say that free speech isn't great, but it does come with problems. But like, you can have anyone, however controversial, just talking about whatever they want to talk about, and putting whatever viewpoints, which may have no obviously expert analysis is controversial, but
I mean, experts these days are very controversial. I think expert has become a very loaded term since COVID.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed a lot of things have changed since COVID, and like, but there's some truth in it. But I think also it's almost a bit of a shame if we lose complete trust in experts to sort of see it, but just someone random's point of view who's had no training is somehow as good as someone's view on the same subject which they've studied for years. Obviously, on many subjects, then two people's views are pretty equal. So on aspects of the human condition or whatever, maybe even morality, but on someone who studied years and years on maybe a certain book in the Old Testament will probably have a much better grasp of that book than someone who hasn't. And that doesn't mean you have to study in universities. You could have studied in a theological seminary or even at Islam theological place as well. So, but yeah, obviously, someone who studied it is probably going to have a better grasp of it.
I mean, yes, I do believe, as you say, that if someone has dedicated a significant amount of time on studying a topic, they would certainly have maybe a better understanding. But people can still argue that even people that have spent a significant amount of time reading a topic can still be ideologically captured
by
a specific political ideology, and therefore try and create a narrative towards that ideology.
Yeah, and it's quite worrying and undermines your belief in experts when you see so many of the universities sort of really going full throttle in terms of ideology, and these are people who should be intelligent.
Yeah.
And that's a problem when you're creating effectively you're marketing a certain worldview, and stats and research should be cleansed of marketing. It should be objective as much as possible.
Yeah, if you actually have real facts and you're confident in your scientific method and in your scientific research, and you've taken the appropriate steps to be as impartial and objective as you can, then you wouldn't need any marketing to push an opinion, because you should stand out to the peer reviewing process and be validated and found to be acceptable by the wider scientific community.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like it's a bit of a shame if we can't trust experts, because then who do we trust? It's like if you've got a health issue and you go to the doctor and you realise the doctor's probably not going to be able to solve your issue, then you go and look at experts online, and it's very hard to tell who's a snake oil salesperson, who's legitimately got knowledge in this area, and then who's actually probably trying to sell some stuff to make a living, but also has knowledge in this area. It's very hard. Once you go in the Wild West, if you go outside the experts, then you're almost more likely to get led astray. At least maybe you could argue if you know that the experts might have some sort of political ideology, I'd say just don't necessarily reject what they're finding. Look at their stats and then really check: are these good studies? Does this make sense? And take the stats rather than their opinion that they've drawn from those stats.
Yeah, I think especially nowadays, especially with the way that people consume content with algorithms and videos that come through your video feed by just scrolling, you get a lot of adverts for a lot of different things these days. I was seeing the other day an advert about those GLP-1 patches that you can just put on your skin.
Right, what for?
GLP-1 is the weight loss drugs, effectively. GLP-1 agonists are the weight loss drugs such as Ozempic and Mounjaro. And people were saying, oh, those new patches have come out. You don't need an injection. You don't need a doctor to prescribe them. You don't need anything. You can just buy them from here. And I saw a lot of videos suddenly pop up in my feed. And if you actually looked deeper into it, you'd actually learn that these patches don't even contain any amount of the active drug. They actually contain other compounds that supposedly are meant to stimulate the production of
the natural chemical
of the natural chemical in your body. But on the flip side, those compounds would not be absorbed through your skin.
Right.
It'd be impossible to be absorbed through your skin.
Scam.
So it's effectively a scam, yeah. And people were saying, oh, it's been working for me. It's been amazing. I've had no appetite for like cravings. And
that's going to be worrying when AI can create really customer review videos which just look just completely real.
That's going to be really scary. Yeah,
because we won't trust it anymore.
And that's the problem. That's what the dead internet theory. People are saying that what if the whole of the internet is becoming an aggregate of bots and AI interactions and nothing being real anymore, and then you go in and think that you're seeing the experiences of other people being documented on something, but they're not real experiences. It's just AI creating loads of responses.
Well, I think in the future we'll have social media where you can click a slider.
You think and reduce your AI?
Take out or reduce the amount of AI content. And not to say that you won't get some good content with AI, but it's just that it's not worth it for some people. Some people might think, okay, I'm just a bit fed up with all this AI stuff. Yeah, I get a few good videos every so often, but do they really enrich my life? Therefore, I'm just going to do the switch and go back to what the internet was effectively before this massive explosion of AI, which had some good content on. It had some bad content, but also some good content. And we got enough human-created content to keep people happy for thousands of years. So I think people, if like social media companies, the one which creates a switch, then that's going to get a lot of people coming over to that platform, which will encourage other platforms to also change. That the freedom of choice will be a draw for people. And it might be that you can't take out all the AI created content because it's so realistic.
And so embedded with real content maybe as well. Like maybe we'll have a very seamless blend at some point of real content mixed with AI content. So
which probably has a better chance of actually appealing to us. I expect going back to the real world with like teachers in future, it won't be a pure AI teacher and there's no human teacher. It will be the best teachers will be a blend of both. The human teacher will be able to do what they do best, and the AI will be able to fill in all the gaps and do all the admin and help the children which are struggling and work out why they're struggling and get them up to speed. So, I don't know where I was going, what we were talking about before.
I think that's what we were saying about the blend of AI and...
So it'd be hard to remove the AI created content if it's blended with humans as well. I don't know.
I think we'll still be here to discuss it later on, I think, as the time goes by and AI becomes more and more part of our lives. I'm just seeing a huge expansion on my own algorithm, and that's why I want to talk to you about it, because I just see more and more of my videos having this AI generated elements in them, even if it's not all of it. I'm seeing videos that have someone talking, and in between you'll have AI generated content, images or videos in between. So I just thought it's a topic that a lot of people might be concerned about, or even people don't realize it's happening, especially if there are older generations of people that are using the internet. Because I know that it's harder to someone who's not very trained to tell when something is AI generated or not.
But I guess we're all going to become like the equivalent of old people who can't manage technology
at some point,
because it's going to become just so much bigger than all of us in terms of its complexity.
Yeah. Therefore, it's up for discussion, I think.
But maybe there'll just be a backlash against all this stuff. I think there will be.
Do you think so?
Well, maybe not, because people just love this the stuff that that AI creates. But also, I think maybe it's time for some Ludditism to come back. I'm surprised it hasn't come back for 150 years. But I feel like the smashing in the machines, or just the getting rid of machines from your life, at least machines which are connected up to social media, the news, or just always sources which don't seem to actually enrich our lives. I feel maybe, and people also perhaps will feel, oh, it's taking our jobs, and there'll be some like populist narrative which makes people think, oh yeah, like we don't like these machines, and so yeah, some people will go like off the grid, as it were, and then some people will get used by the technology and just get more and more drawn into it because they get more and more excellent content. Because AI will no doubt add a significant amount to the amount of good content out there which people can consume. And if they're spending less time working, they've got more time to consume. So people will just get more sort of sucked into the system of technology, get used by it. And then there'll be some people who use technology, whether that's very rich people or people who are just entrepreneurial and they're perhaps not very rich, but they feel like there's an opportunity to make use of all these amazing tools that we've, in a way, this is the biggest opportunity, the biggest gold rush that
it does feel
there's
like
ever been.
Yeah.
So if you can take advantage of that, then it's in a way that's great. But also, yeah, so there's going to be those three groups, and each of them is going to have different amounts of power and money and health, and so you're going to get big splits in the same societies.
Did you think that? I think at the moment there's a lot of excitement for sure around AI and technology and stuff, and I think a lot of people don't even get the chance to understand what is happening before the next breakthrough is happening these days. So, do you think that it will naturally force, as you said, a big section of the population to turn against technology?
Almost the quicker it goes, the more likely there's going to be backlash. The dangerous thing almost if it is so slow, but
push back against
people tolerate things which are very gradual or slow, even if they're things which hurt them. They'll generally just acclimatise to it. Whereas if it's like, for instance, revolutions in history, and this is a revolution, the AI revolution, the revolutions in history, if they are like violent and big, they often just go back the other way. Whether that's the party that was disposed reclaiming power, or the party that topples the previous power, themselves suffering the same problems that they were originally opposed to. So generally, the law of nature, as it were, is that if there is massive change, then it will tumble sooner or later.
I do think that there will be some pushback maybe at some point. Maybe we'll end up creating, as you said, different classes of people based on how engaged with technology and change they are.
The trouble is, if you are of a class of people who choose to check out of technology, then maybe you are vulnerable to the whims of the people who have all the power, and they could have immense power to effectively, like, imagine that that's like we are compared to some Aboriginal or indigenous people.
Who are like tribes in the Amazon forest that are not even...
And they are only able to carry on existing because of our benevolence, say. But they could, if we wanted, commercial interests.
Yeah, they could like level the whole forest.
Yeah, if there was no government control at all, then they would be gone. And so that would be theoretically the same with this scenario. So I think technology which safeguards each individual, which allows you to check out from the bad aspects of technology. So basically, you probably wouldn't be looking at a screen very much. You just got your own AI set of tools, like a Swiss Army knife, with the tools you need to safeguard your personal sovereignty. whether that's be political or economical or whatever, or health as well. So you've got the power that will enhance your life, but you're not sucked into the system. Well,
let's take a theoretical scenario here. What if people that have this power choose to live in a completely AI-generated and simulated world, effectively? Like, if I'm to describe it in a little bit better terms, what if people choose to only consume AI-generated content that isn't reflective of reality anymore?
On social media.
On social media.
So this would probably not be the type of people who are Luddites.
No, the opposite, but in a way that all their content is artificially generated, and it's also not reflected of the truth of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, well, that's a worrying sea of like just messiness in terms of there's like, you're going to drown in that psychologically and in reality as well. It's not going to be good.
But do you think people will be able to survive in such a way? Would they be able to go about their normal day-to-day lives believing that, if the AI tells them that the sky is black now, I don't know, something extreme.
Maybe.
They'll be able to live their lives like that, especially if you don't need to go out anymore. Let's say if you always need to be inside your home to work, to live, to eat, to drink.
AI. That's box life. So you're in a box.
Yeah, and you're in a box and the AI tells you outside there's nothing. World doesn't exist outside.
You get food orders in and everything.
Yeah. And the food comes in through a hatch or something.
You don't even need AI for this.
I know,
since COVID, we've had all this stuff because it was needed to be accelerated because of the scenario. So, like COVID just accelerated what was already happening. So we already can live a false reality in that way.
I think that scares me.
And there's nothing to stop because we're living in a free society. There's nothing to stop, and we don't want to have it imposed that you should not do all these things which are bad for your mental health. So it's completely within someone's right, if they've got the money, to just completely spend all their life in a virtual system with just fakeness everywhere.
Yeah, I think, as you said, that will be the case, and it almost becoming the case. But I find it like an episode of Black Mirror in my mind, living in existence like that without ever knowing, without ever touching grass, as people say.
The trouble is with technology, the quality of content will probably be so good that even people have a general belief that this is probably like an episode of Black Mirror. I would say as high as 90% of the people will carry on being part of the system, whatever that is, and buying the products because they don't want to miss out and because it's just so convenient.
And maybe at some point we'll end up being able to live a reality that's more appealing virtually than the real world.
Well, that's the danger as well. Like we can be...
I was just presenting a scenario
we can be fully attractive online.
Exactly.
Whatever you want. And probably offline as well in future. Yeah. We're probably going to have perfect plastic surgery. We can do whatever you want, which is a bit worrying.
It is
because
worrying.
There will be some people who don't want to make those changes. They want to be authentic. We can discuss whether that is authentic or not, but let's say that they're right and that they feel it's wrong to change yourself radically to what you naturally look like. But then you're going to get some people, because it's a free society, and increasingly the amounts of plastic surgery is going up rapidly.
It has.
So you'll get... Whereas 10 years ago, it was easy to make a decision, I'm going to be authentic and I'm not going to do plastic surgery. Then now in 10 years, it's going to be, say, 50% of people have some sort of plastic surgery. So your average attractiveness in terms of physicality has gone down compared to the relative, and therefore there's more and more incentive to just play into the game. And I don't know what to think about that.
It is very scary, especially if you think that soon enough, especially in virtual spaces, we're going to be competed with virtually created avatars that will look as realistic as real people.
We'll go into the plastic surgeon's office and say, make me look like my online version.
Exactly.
and that could be quite scary as well. But I think this all comes from, in a way,
Is it just a fear of change more than anything?
Well, I'm sure there is fear of change, but I think all these things we're fearing, in a way, we are powering them through our flawed mindset.
Oh, sorry.
Our flawed mindset.
Flawed mindset.
Now, this maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that a lot of the stuff is just taking advantage of human desires, which are perhaps a bit wayward in terms of thinking that making yourself look perfect will make you significantly happier. I think ultimately it's a search for happiness, meaning and fulfillment. And all these things which like social media sort of provides us with, doesn't actually provide us with it, but we'll keep playing the game and it will always be some promise of salvation by technology. So technology becomes the new religion, and it has become the new religion because it promises everything. It promises everything theoretically, even eternal life. As
we discussed about it in our Brian Johnson's documentary about living forever.
And in a way, it's a realer version of eternal life than perhaps the traditional religions provided, because you could actually see that, this actually might be possible. We could see how this potentially could be possible, but it's also, as well as being more real, I think most people see it as also more fake. It feels like there's just something off about it, something almost sickly,
something intrinsically
wrong. Maybe it goes against our alien or something.
Yeah,
and it's very then hard to distinguish what is a inbuilt human bias against things which are not natural, and what is a genuine. What's the difference between a conscience which is pure or if there is such a thing, and a conscience which has been affected by our upbringing and our natural dispositions. So it's finding some sort of truth, I think, is very important to make decisions on this stuff, or value judgments.
I think, and because of technology as well, we're becoming increasingly materialistic and increasingly attached to our image and our and the visual wonders we can see online. And I think maybe in a way that's detaching us from our sense of self as well. I think a lot of people, as we were saying, create an online avatar / persona, and they want to become that, but in the process they become alienated from their own self and their own sense of self, or they feel that they're not enough maybe in their own sense of self, therefore they want to become this higher version of themselves that they see as that online avatar that they've created.
I think it always comes from a place of not feeling enough as you are, and that might be because other people treat you as not enough, but it also ultimately is down to you whether you think you're enough. So no one can really affect your opinion of yourself unless you also give in to that other person's opinion.
I get what you say, but I think that a lot of people get exposed to social media and that online presence from a very young age these days, from the teenage years. And on those years, when you're a teenager, your sense of self and your sense of who you are isn't yet solidified.
Well, I think Australia has gone down the right route of banning social media for people under 16, 18, I don't know. But I just think the benefits of use of social media for young people don't nowhere near outweigh the potential negative. So I actually think we should have children under a certain age should be just completely disconnected, because children will always find a way around it.
Of course.
So they should be completely digitally disconnected. They should have internal intranets, but not internet.
Yeah, almost like, almost kind of like kids' YouTube version kind of thing.
But, maybe, but then...
But even that, I've heard, it has been compromised.
I feel there will always be some sort of leakage.
There is.
In whatever
there
way.
Is, yes.
And therefore, and I just don't see the advantage in it. So I feel, like maybe have some apps or whatever that help the kids' education. Like the traditional argument is that, oh, kids who have technology are going to be way
outcompeted
they are going to outcompete the
other
people who don't have technology growing up. But firstly, I think that's largely redundant, because none of us need to. If you're an engineer who knows how to know how a car works, that you have no advantage in driving the car against me, who has no idea how a car works. And so it's same with technology. Is in future, when AI is able to do all the coding and whatever, then it's all going to be super easy to use, super intuitive, because it's just going to get cleverer and cleverer. And so you can come online at 16, 18, and you'll know how to use it, because it will coach you how to use it. It will be just the best teacher ever. So I think that's not an argument which really stands up, saying, oh, you need to have your kids on this technology so they understand it from an early age. And also, you can, if you want them to become good coders, which might be a bad strategy. It seemed like a great strategy 5 years ago to get.
No, all the coders are getting fired because ChatGPT and all the other AI models are doing coding just like that.
Very hard to predict what's going to be valuable jobs going forwards, but which is probably why you should pursue your passion. Another reason that you should pursue your passion. But anyway, what we were saying about coding. If you want your kids to code, there's loads of great online courses and apps which will make them a better coder than if they were spending time on social media.
Exactly. No one is gonna get a better coder by being at 16 on Facebook and have social media.
I guess you just get a better idea of how technology works, but not really. I think it's just going to be so intuitive going forward that you just don't need to. Also, I think making sure humans have a really, like, damaging people's mental health for the sake of them potentially being better at a certain class of jobs in 20 years is not worth it. And so I think there's a very strong argument to have a complete ban on any child
being on social media.
So even news, because I feel like you could say there's certain news outlets which are maybe more trustworthy, some that aren't, but everyone's going to disagree with that. And I feel really there's very little impact someone under 16 can really have an effect on, and because you haven't really matured. No. So in a way, you're probably going to have a better view on politics if you come at from a pure point of view. You've had like just a really good education in the facts of life, not so the things which are always true, rather than the things which are always changing, which is news. And so when you're 16, 18, you come into the world with fresh eyes, and I think that is you'll be better informed to make your opinions at that age, rather than having been exposed to all this stuff as you've been growing up. So I feel it's just such a strong argument. I think that's one of the biggest things we could do to safeguard our mental health and society's health.
I completely agree. There's so many studies that have been showing recently that mental health amongst teenagers has deteriorated so much.
And pornography as well. So there's so many of these things which come on the online ecosystem which you could shut off. Maybe not.
The problem I have with that is that you mentioned pornography again. UK government has proposed the age verification details of the users to be provided to websites in order to access pornography websites in the UK. And people are saying that this is done in order to safeguard children. But I don't think that having to use your personal information to log in anywhere is necessarily a good strategy.
Maybe not. And maybe that problem will go away when we work out a way of just completely shutting off people under 16 or 18 from the internet. So
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it would be really good to find a way to safeguard children, but not as a way to reduce freedom of people, or actually adults, or actually, get people's personal data or reduce people's freedom in one way or another. That's all I would say.
I think I agree.
Yeah. But I definitely think that there has to be something.
Unfortunately, it seems like the government is the only one who can actually have an effect on rampant capitalism / innovation / technology, which is like a blunt force which will just keep rolling in the way it's been pushed, and it will eventually do whatever that progress will take it towards, whether that's good or bad. So technology in itself is not good or bad. It doesn't have any evil desires of its own. It just will cater to our own needs. So government, or maybe individuals, empowered individuals with technology, will be able to overcome the problems with technology. Just been using us rather than us using technology.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe that is the way. Well, I think we're almost to an hour again. Therefore, I think it's a good time to wrap up today's discussion. I'm very hopeful for technology personally.
We talk a lot.
I know I come across as hesitant or fearful of technology, but I am genuinely so excited. I think there's not a better time to be alive, to be honest.
We're living through a very exciting / scary time, and I feel there is a very good case to be made for all these new technologies coming through, and they could have a really good impact in so many areas of our life. It's just we just need to make sure basically we're not being controlled by it.
We're not being controlled by it, and we're not the generation that will bury all the next ones that will come up afterwards. But I'm very hopeful, and I'm really glad to be here to experience all of this innovation and technology coming out now, right in front of our eyes, even though I might sound extremely skeptical sometimes or fearful of it.
It is possible that we will get so much innovation that we'll just get sick of it.
Maybe.
Like you just had too much food.
Maybe, like too much of it, yes.
And maybe that's...
You'd be like, no, I don't want any more innovation.
Maybe that's a good thing. Because in a way, we need to have the midlife crisis as society. We need to get rich and do all the stuff which we thought would make us happy, and realize it doesn't. And we get to a point where we have everything we want with technology and whatever. We just can't imagine anything more. Yeah. And then we think we're not happy. And then we actually, that could be a problem for people, but also it's an opportunity to actually start inquiring over why we're not happy.
I mean, sometimes I find this has been a motivational part for myself as well. When I've had too much of something, like for example, I often want to go on a diet, and I find the best time I usually go on a diet is after I've eaten too much for a time. And I'm like, I'm sick of it. I don't want to eat any more food anymore. I want to go into a diet now. I've had too much of this, and I'm going to start eating less now because I feel like a pig. And this has been a motivational part for me. So I think, as you say, maybe we'll get too much innovation. At some point, we'll be like, this is too much. Don't want any more of innovation.
I think authentic is going to be the big word going forward in every dimension, social media, whatever. Like, I think that would be the key word. Of next
authentic
10,
people,
20 years.
Authentic content,
authentic connections, authentic art.
Yes,
we're going to find out what's really matters to us, and I think that would be good. But even if that's highlighted by realizing all the stuff which doesn't really matter to us, that will highlight what actually matters.
I like that, and then we can wrap here this episode of Going Nowhere. And if anyone has any other comments to add based on our discussion, or wants to bring your opinions even on what you just heard, leave your comments down below, and we'll see you on the next episode.